Michael Hartman joins me today on the podcast. Michael is the principal of Active Living for Capital Senior Housing, or CSH. He's responsible for CSH's Active Living platform. He works to acquire and renovate existing assets as well as developing uniquely tailored new assets. With more than 2 decades of experience in the commercial real estate, so I'm eager to hear more about his experience and thoughts on the senior housing market. So, Michael, thank you so much for coming back to Boomer Living for round two.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So, I last had you on the show in October of 2020. And since then, how have we seen the senior housing markets change?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me and having me back.
Now, given all the changes to the workplace and the market from COVID, everyone's jobs seem to be shifting. Has your day to day work at Capital Senior Housing changed since October?
It has actually. One of the things that's emerged, and it's a good segue into some of the things I want to talk about here in a minute. One of the things emerged is that the story industry wide for 2020 was the success of 55 plus active living relative to assisted living memory care and relative to bundled independent living. On the last podcast, I drew the distinction. Independent living means you're paying one rent, and that rent includes food, housekeeping, transportation. Active living, it's one rent. None of that's included. It's just a senior, and because that's not included, the price point's lower. And we talked about that, and people can listen in on that one. But what emerged is that in 2020, assisted living, memory care, and even independent living, they got really hit hard during the pandemic. You have a sicker, frailer, older community of residents who did unfortunately get sick, many of whom died. There were problems with the delivery of healthcare. We forget pre-pandemic, the caregivers didn't even wear gloves and masks when they were delivering care. I mean, it was just a different world. So what folks learned is that if you were to see a spreadsheet of every community in our company or across the nation, very few of them are 55 plus purpose built. Many of them are assisted living memory care. 55 plus purpose built, active living, active adult, senior apartments, all the same thing, held up much better and it fared better, primarily because the people who live there were not as sick and not as old. And so healthier, younger population. I'm talking now from a investment perspective, not from a health perspective, but we didn't have a lot of cases and deaths in our 55 plus communities, and we had a lot in assisted living memory care. So it's perceived as a safer place to go. It's certainly a healthier constituent that goes into a 55 plus relative to the others. So that was the story of 2020, was the predominance and prevalence of and success of the 55 plus community.
True, true. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, you work on Capital Senior Housing's Active Living platform. So, can you tell us more what an active living platform is and what demographics it caters to?
Yes, thank you. That's a good segue. So I think I also mentioned on the last one, you have a spectrum of healthcare needs, typically beginning with I can no longer, let's say, drive, or I can no longer, just to keep it real simple, I can no longer clean my house. I can no longer cook my own meals. You and I are probably roughly the same age. We have parents that are older. Maybe pandemic happens. I know I was able to see my mother for the first time in a while, and things change over a year. And as you get older, needs change gradually as opposed to needs changing immediately. And so the idea here is, rather than having a senior have to make a big life decision and to choose an all or none approach and move into, for example, an independent living facility. An independent living facility has food, housekeeping, transportation. That's all bundled in. Mom can no longer drive. She can no longer cook for herself. She can no longer vacuum and clean up the apartment or the house. If that decision, all or none, you would have to pay a lot more money and get into an independent living, maybe a little bit before you really have the needs. The idea with active adult is giving the power of choice back to the resident. And it allows that resident to slowly and gradually choose the things that they need and spend the money on the things that they need as they need them. Maybe they need help Shopping. The beauty is that we have the phone, Instacart, Amazon. Maybe they need help going to the doctor or going to the grocery store. We have Uber. There's TaskRabbit, which is an app that helps you get your apartment cleaned or hang a picture or whatever it is. And there are ways, rather than having it all paid in. The average independent living rent in America is $4,000. The average active adult rent in America is probably $2,000. So it's a 50% savings. Now, you're not getting anything bundled in with that. But the beauty of active living and why I'm passionate about it is the addressable market, which is a fancy way of saying the number of people in America that can afford $2,000 is a lot more than the number of people in America that can afford $4,000. And of course, it goes without saying that $4,000 is independent living. Then above that, you have assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing. There's a pyramid out there. Only a certain percentage of Americans can afford $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month. The idea with active adult is let's find an affordable, attractive, value-driven product. It is an entry-level product for folks who are not yet frail enough to need the higher levels of care. And we think it's a big part of the solution within the industry for the next decades to come.
Entry level with an emphasis on socialization too, right?
Yes, thank you. Yes. And what does differentiate it? You're in a community of like-minded people. You're at the same stage in your life with others that are going through the same thing, dealing with children and grandchildren and spouses that are passing away. And the idea is now that everyone has left the home, let's find a way for mom or dad to remain social and to live with other people so that they can hang out and do activities and hobbies and all of those good things. And to be honest with you, a big part of the safety and security and well-being of having somebody living in one of our communities is that there's accountability. They have friends around them. And as adult children, I want to know someone's checking up on mom and that they've got friends and they've got things to do during the day. So really 55 plus is the idea is on a very superficial level, it's shelter and activities. But really more importantly, as you mentioned rightly, it's a way of socializing and making sure that they have things to do and then people to do those things with.